This is the fourth time that I've come here to see this particular installation. I came for the opening, which was a day when it was filled with people, very crowded, and I circulated among them and looked at the pieces. The next time I returned, I was alone, and I had a chance to look at the pieces alone and contemplate them with no one else around. And then the third time was yesterday, and we chatted about them, so it was just you and me. So this is the fourth time, and the first time I came, it was difficult, I'll admit, because the place was packed with people, so it was difficult to form my impressions. But when I came back alone, there is, of course, I don't think anyone can look at these statues without the sense of the peacefulness of each individual piece and the relationship among them. But actually, there's also overhanging the arrangement an aura of violence. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about this. And what I mean is this. Physically, when you look at the pieces, each one of them has some gesture of violence, self-inflicted violence. In the case of the eye that's been scratched in the pieces. There are also these indentations that look almost like they've taken in a punch, a blow. So there are physical signs, and then when you think about the myths that you've involved here, there's of course Oedipus, who ends up scratching out his eyes and blinding himself violently when he finds out the truth of his background. And his wife / mother, meanwhile, goes off and kills herself. And then in the case of Orpheus, Eurydice is beloved. I mean, she ends up in the underworld to begin with because she's bitten by a viper. And then, of course, later, after he goes down, gets her, but then he's unsuccessful getting her out. He's later ripped apart by the Maenads in the forest. And even the Buddha, your third figure, whom you work with in these pieces, the Buddha we don't associate with violence, but on the night when he attains enlightenment, he's assaulted, according to the legend, by Mara, this demon, and his minions, representing arrogance and pride and hatred and all the passions that the Buddha, that the Siddhartha has to overcome in order to obtain enlightenment. So my question is, I'd like if you could comment on that, the aura of violence that creates kind of an atmosphere enveloping these otherwise extremely peaceful pieces.
Yes. The thing is that you look at a lot of paradoxes that are going on. And one aspect is that I'm kind of playing with the idea that through life living expressively, we have a lot of residues through inflictions, through challenges. We even have a discontent within us that could be warlike if we didn't find the balance of peace. So these resonance of what we call violence here are showing a side of coming out of the organic adventure of life, the Odyssey or something. And to give the source of peace is that innermost attempt to really dwell in the stillness of our serenity. So the closed eye and the smile really kind of represent that. The scratching and the holes and the movement, the energy forces, all that, is the temporal activity that we're constantly a part of, negatively and positively, And so the eclipse really plays a big part, and some of these are two heads like the Janus head or something. And we were talking before about the idea of the twin, and in a sense, we're looking for our twin to become whole. So the other thing in art is that I don't approach it academically. It's suggestive, and it has a lot of readings. Like, for example, with these figures, there's a sarcophagus feeling, there's a cocoon feeling. There's a feeling of stasis, but then you have these sort of concentric, almost landscape ribs coming around it. There's concave, convex. There's a lot going on in these very quiet, solemn columns that have a relationship to the treeness here too. So that there is violence, but we are within our birthright, I believe, whatever we're given and the challenges of life, we can bring that to a certain type of awareness of peace. And Orpheus, to me, is used symbolically as a reference that brings discord to harmony. I mean, he was a gifted, not a god, but a human, most gifted, to bring music, to enchant even Hades in a peaceful way. So art, he's also a patron, Orpheus being the patron of the arts, poetry, the sense of a higher transcendence from the mundane trafficking that has to do with separation. He brings a sense of unity through music. So this becomes kind of a metaphor and symbol for me. So it's along that line. Yeah.
Well, you've mentioned Orpheus. At what point did Orpheus, in your imagining of these pieces, at what point did he become blended together with Siddhartha, the Buddha, and Oedipus, these tragic figures?
Yes. Well, I think it's, this kind of the Greek story, But as Orpheus became used by the evolution of how we interpret things, commentaries on the great works, whatever, is that he becomes a symbol for what we need at our time, in a sense. In other words, I'm just bringing him into our time. And I think we have a great gap with really introspection and contemplation, because we have such a wonderful advancement with technology and the artificialities of life, and we live in such a consumer time period that many people don't really have time to even know themselves. And I think even in the art field, there's a lot of work that really stops at a certain level and doesn't really go further into what I feel this poetic language can induce. And so the Fisher King, which became part of the Christian movement, was Orpheus. He was transformed into the Fisher King. But I'm going through Joseph Campbell. I mean, this is not my original thinking. And I think that he has disappeared and reappeared. Now, I bring him back and I say that he is the sage of the West, in a sense. I mean, he's a sage like, I don't know, Siddhartha or Shankara or some of the other greats, Buddha, whatever, in the East. And so we have a different temperament. We are challenged with duality, whereas oneness is very difficult in our society. Whereas in other age periods and also in the East, it's very natural. It's just very natural. So I think that I'm just introducing these aspects, and people, it's open for interpretation. That's the thing, And your readings are felt by me because I become a spectator too, Dave, who was just in here, was talking about things that I would say, oh yeah, he was talking about the horns of a ram, and being transmitters or something. And I was saying, yeah, okay, it could be, So, but if you feel that what you said in the beginning, something is happening, and that's what I'm trying to do, is get the feelings so that people can respond into their own self, and whether it's through an interpretation or just backing up into a more peaceful feeling. It's all part of this activity,